Emmanuel, God is still saying something. My name is Annette, reporting for Emmanuel TV. During a recent Sunday service at the Synagogue Church of All Nations, Prophet T.B. Joshua spoke forth a prophetic message concerning an event that would take place in a supernation at a place bearing the name Fort. These were his words.
What is happening here is a blessing to the nation and to the whole world. Like today, I have some message. This is not even Nigeria, but a super nation. The name Fox, we should pray for that name. It may be the name of a big company in the whole world, but it's a name. Pray for this name. It's a parable, because I'm seeing a strange person carry something. But I said, no, God, please. We are praying for the whole world here. I will keep praying for the whole world.
Take note of the name Prophet T.B. Joshua pronounced, Fort.
The name Fox.
And many of those soldiers at Fort Hood.
Shooting at Fort Hood?
Yes, Fort Hood, Texas is a...
Fort Hood.
Fort Hood in Texas, killing
12 people have been killed and 31 wounded in a mass shooting at the Fort Hood Army base in the U.S. state of Texas.
On Thursday, November 5th, 2009, a soldier carrying 2 handguns opened fire on fellow soldiers at the Fort Hood Army base in Fort Hood, Texas, USA. 13 people were killed and 30 were wounded. Let us watch the reports.
We've been covering the breaking news out of Fort Hood, Texas now for the past hour here in the Situation Room. And this is what we know, this coming from U.S. Army Lieutenant General Bob Cohen, who just briefed reporters at Fort Hood, Texas, the largest U.S. Army base in the world. At any one time, 40 or 50,000 soldiers based at Fort Hood. At around 1:30 p.m. Central Time, that would be 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, a soldier, he says, opened fire inside what's called the Soldier Readiness Facility, the Army Readiness Facility. Troops are doing the final paperwork, getting a little medical assistance, dental work, before they get ready to head off to war in Afghanistan or Iraq. This alleged shooter opened fire, killed 12, wounded 31, we believe all to be United States military personnel. 2 other soldiers are deemed to be suspects right now. They've been apprehended, and the lockdown, though, continues out of what he describes as an abundance of caution on this huge, huge base. But it sounds, unless they find other suspects out there, like they have the situation under control. But I want to caution our viewers that these are still preliminary reports, and they're going to be very, very careful before they say this incident has been resolved.
At this time, the numbers that we're looking at are 12 dead and 31 wounded, and they're dispersed.
Let us watch another report.
Fort Hood, home of heroes, is tonight quiet. It is the quiet of a community of soldiers and their families in shock and sorrow, the quiet of a crime scene, the quiet after a massacre, what is believed to be the deadliest mass shooting at a U.S. Army base ever. It happened early this afternoon. At least 12 people have been killed, many more wounded. Most of the casualties, soldiers, some of them preparing for deployment overseas. And they were targeted by one of their own, it appears. The suspect shooter, Major Nidal Malik Hassan, an Army psychiatrist. There were reports earlier that he had been killed during the rampage, but officials revealed tonight in a surprising twist that he survived. He is in custody. He's in stable condition with gunshot wounds. Our coverage of the tragedy here at Fort Hood begins with my colleague, Ryan Owens.
As soldiers preparing to head to war gathered for their final medical exams, their last-minute paperwork before heading overseas, one of their own walked in and opened fire. The gunshots started at 1:30 in the afternoon inside what's known as the Soldier Readiness Center at the Army's largest military base in the United States. Fort Hood, Texas.
Attention, seek shelter immediately.
The shots were at close range, fired by a trained military officer with deadly accuracy. With 2 handguns, the shooter killed 12 and injured 31.
It's a terrible tragedy. It's stunning. As I say, as I've gone around to the hospital here, as I've been at the scene, the soldiers and family members and many of the great civilians that work here are absolutely devastated.
The victims, most of them soldiers, were unarmed, unable to defend themselves. A responding police officer finally opened fire. She injured the suspect and silenced the shooting. Victims were rushed to hospitals across Central Texas, and overrun emergency rooms pleaded for blood donations. There were rumors of other shooters. The entire base was put on lockdown. Children at the base's 9 schools were kept inside. Their anxious parents gathered immediately at the front gate.
It's really disheartening to be, you know something's going on and you can't get to your child.
It's very, very stressful and we don't know what's going on.
By mid-afternoon, the president and top military leaders were briefed on the largest mass shooting ever at a military base.
It's difficult enough when we lose these brave Americans in battles overseas. It is horrifying that they should come under fire at an Army base on American soil.
Allegedly by one of their own. Military investigators say the shooter was not some young soldier who lost it over the stress of heading to war. Quite the contrary. The suspect is a 39-year-old Army officer, a major named Nidal Hassan, a military psychiatrist trained to help soldiers in his unit. Investigators initially said he'd been killed in the exchange of gunfire.
Preliminary reports indicate there was a single shooter that was shot multiple times at the scene. However, he was not killed as previously reported. He is currently in custody and in stable condition.
One of the soldiers he hit, 21-year-old Kira Bono, seen here smiling on her MySpace page. Her mother says she and her husband spoke with their daughter on the phone shortly after she was shot.
She was actually saying they shot me, you know, and was actually really upset that they had shot her. So I think she was actually more mad and upset that she got shot and then, you know, scared. I think it happened so fast for her and she actually got injured.
More than 6 hours after the shooting began, lockdown was finally lifted at Fort Hood. And for parents like Cynthia Wood, she couldn't help but think of her husband, her young son's father, who is fighting in Iraq.
He has enough to worry about. We worry about him. And now he was over there all night. He has to get up at 5 o'clock to do a mission. And he has to worry about whether or not we're okay back here where he left us, where he thought we were safe.
I'm Ryan Owens for Nightline at Fort Hood, Texas.
Take note of the name Prophet T.B. Joshua pronounced, Fort.
The name Fox.
And many of those soldiers at Fort Hood. Shooting at Fort Hood.
Yes, Fort Hood, Texas is a...
Fort Hood.
Fort Hood in Texas, killing
12 people have been killed and 31 wounded in a mass shooting at the Fort Hood Army base in the U.S. state of Texas.
The name Fox, we should pray for that name. It may be the name of a big company in the whole world, but it's a name.
Fort. This was the name revealed by God Almighty to Prophet T.B. Joshua and pronounced by the man of God during the Sunday service. Fort Hood. Let us listen how Prophet T.B. Joshua further described Fort Hood.
This is not even Nigeria, but a super nation.
The Fort Hood Army base is located in Fort Hood, Texas, USA. Indeed, a super nation, just as the man of God said.
The name Fox, we should pray for that name. It may be the name of a big company in the whole world, but it's a name.